The barracks were quiet except for the clink of boots on the tile floor and the sharp echo of Sergeant Miller's voice as he barked orders. "Carter, step forward!" My stomach dropped like a stone. The silence in the room thickened. Every pair of eyes trained on me, waiting. I didn't want this. I didn't want to be the center of attention. But I was. I stepped forward, feeling the weight of everyone's judgment pressing down on me. Sergeant Miller's eyes narrowed as he looked me up and down like I was some kind of insect he'd just found under his boot. "What's the matter with you, Carter? You can't even stand at attention, right?" The room held its breath as Miller's voice echoed off the concrete walls. "What's a tiny little thing like you even doing in this unit? You sure you can handle it, Private?" I could feel my face turning red, the heat of embarrassment flooding my chest. The others? They were already laughing, some of them in a way that didn't even try to hide their amusement. Corporal Johnson, the loudest of the bunch, let out a mocking snicker. "Guess they let anyone in nowadays." My hands were clenched into fists, but I didn't move. I just kept my back straight, despite the sweat gathering under my uniform, despite the snickers that made my skin crawl. My voice didn't shake when I replied, but I could hear the slight hitch in my breath. "Yes, Sergeant." "Yeah? Well, we'll see if you can keep up when it counts, won't we?" His words sliced through the air like a blade. He turned back to the rest of the recruits. "The rest of you, get back in line. Carter, don't just stand there looking useless. Get down and do some push-ups." I dropped to the floor with a thud, the weight of everyone's eyes burning into my back. I'd never been the biggest or the fastest or the toughest. I knew that, but I wasn't weak, and that was the one thing they couldn't take away from me. No matter how much they mocked, no matter how hard they tried to break me, I was still here. I was still fighting. As I hit the ground for the 100th push-up, I heard a soft voice from the corner of the room. "Don't listen to them, Carter." It was Alex, the quiet one. He didn't speak much, but I noticed him before. Always observing, always keeping to himself. He'd been here just as long as the rest of us, but he wasn't part of their crew. Not like the others. I glanced up at him for a split second, enough to catch his steady gaze. His eyes held something I didn't expect. Sympathy, maybe even respect, but he didn't say anything else. He didn't try to help me. Not yet. The rest of the session felt like it went on forever. Every push-up, every drill, felt like it took a piece of me, but I kept going. I knew I wasn't the strongest, but I had something they didn't know. They hadn't seen it yet. Later, as we stood in formation, Sergeant Miller was giving one of his infamous speeches about discipline. I couldn't focus on his words. My mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment in the barracks over and over again. The mocking tone, the laughter, the way they looked at me like I was nothing more than a joke. I wanted to tell them all to shut up, to stand up for myself, but I knew better. In the military, you don't speak up unless you're asked, and they hadn't asked. I glanced over at Alex, who was standing at attention beside me. He didn't look at me, but I caught his hand flexing slightly, like he was resisting the urge to say something, to step in. That was the thing about Alex. He saw everything, but he never intervened. Maybe he couldn't, or maybe he just didn't know how. But as much as it stung, I knew I had to prove them wrong. I had to show them that I belonged here. I wasn't just going to roll over and take it. They thought they could break me with a few words. I thought that was the end of it, that maybe I'd just go home and disappear like they expected me to. But then everything changed in ways I couldn't imagine. The next day, during one of the most brutal drills, Sergeant Miller picked me out again. "Carter, you're at the back of the line. You're holding everyone up." His voice cut through the air like a whip. I swallowed hard, but I didn't break my stance. Not this time. "You'll stay behind and do it again until you get it right." I tried to breathe, tried to push past the heat in my chest. I could feel everyone's eyes on me again, but I didn't care. What I never expected was for Alex to step forward, just slightly, his voice barely a whisper. "She's doing fine, Sergeant. She's just trying to keep up with the rest of us." The words stopped me cold. It wasn't much, but it was something. A little bit of kindness, a little bit of someone seeing me for who I really was. And maybe, just maybe, that's the moment I started to see myself a little differently too. I didn't know how I'd get through the rest of the training, how I'd prove them all wrong. But I knew this. I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to let them break me. Not today, not ever. And if this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. Every morning felt the same. The sharp clink of boots in unison, the stench of sweat mixed with the faint scent of polish on the floor. I woke up every day with the knowledge that today, like every other day, I'd be judged. Not by what I could do, but by who I was, or rather, who they thought I was. And that's how I started my days at boot camp, just like everyone else. Getting up before the sun, holding my breath as Sergeant Miller barked orders, trying to hide the gnawing sense of inadequacy that seemed to eat at me from the inside out. We'd march in perfect formation, our boots pounding the gravel in sync, and I always felt like I was a step behind. Maybe not physically, I had the stamina, but mentally, they were all so much more certain of themselves, their moves sharper, their words louder. I didn't have that confidence. I didn't have the luxury of being just another recruit. I had to prove I belonged. Every second of every drill felt like a test I didn't know how to study for. And it didn't help that they all had this silent, unspoken hierarchy. Some recruits didn't even need to be told to follow orders. They just knew, like Jason. He'd been here for a few weeks longer than me, and his arrogance had already earned him the title of the squad's unofficial leader. He had the body, he had the swagger, and he sure as hell had the attitude. Jason would make comments when I messed up during drills like he enjoyed it. "Carter, you call that a push-up?" He'd laugh, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "You're a liability, Private." It stung every time, but I never showed it. I couldn't. One afternoon, after a particularly brutal round of physical training, Sergeant Miller had us line up in the barracks. Sweat was dripping down my face, but the real battle was in my chest, the constant fear that I'd mess up again, and they'd see how weak I really was. "Carter!" Miller's voice rang out like a gunshot. My body went rigid. "Front and center. Now!" My heart skipped. It didn't take long to figure out why I was being singled out. The rest of the recruits could do the drills in their sleep, but I had faltered, again. I thought maybe this time I'd manage to stand my ground. Maybe I could finally be good enough. But as I stepped forward, my legs felt like concrete. "What's the matter with you?" Miller's voice slammed into me. "You're dragging this whole squad down. I thought we trained Marines here, not whatever you are." I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the heat rising in my face, trying to fight the embarrassment that clawed at me. But Jason, of course, wasn't about to let it go. He was smirking, leaning back against the wall, his arms folded. "Guess we'll just have to carry you across the finish line, huh, Carter?" He sneered, the words like acid. I stood there, the eyes of everyone on me, my throat tight. "Yes, Sergeant." That's all I could say. I didn't have anything else to give him. He didn't need to know how much those words burned. Miller didn't even wait for me to respond before barking his next order. "Drop and give me 50, Carter. I want to see what you're really made of." The rest of the squad was already shifting uncomfortably. I could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on me like a 1,000-pound weight. I dropped to the floor, my hands shaking as I tried to push up. 1, 2, 3. The numbers blurred as I went. It wasn't the push-ups that got to me. It was the way they all looked at me like I was some kind of joke. My arms screamed for mercy, but I fought to keep going. I had to prove I could. I didn't know what would happen if I didn't. When I hit 20, I felt my arms go numb, but I kept pushing. 30, 40. Then I collapsed. My chest heaved, my breath ragged and raw. The room was quiet for a moment, but then came the laughter. Jason's voice was louder than the rest, mocking me for my failure. "Is that all you got, Carter?" he said, his words dripping with disdain. "Pathetic." I could feel my body burning with embarrassment, but I didn't let it show. I just lay there, fists clenched, waiting for the pain to pass. The rest of the squad was moving on, starting their next exercise, leaving me in the dirt where I belonged. But then something unexpected happened. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me realize I wasn't completely invisible. I caught a glimpse of Alex standing off to the side, watching me with an intensity I hadn't seen before. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't laughing. He just watched me, his eyes steady, and for the first time not filled with pity. It was respect. He didn't say anything, not yet, but I knew in that moment he was paying attention. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this. The next few days dragged on like the first. The physical training harder each time. The drills more brutal. Jason always at the front, always mocking. Miller always watching for any excuse to tear me down. But I kept going. I kept pushing through the exhaustion, the frustration, the constant weight of their judgment. It wasn't until the next round of obstacle training that I felt like something changed. I was struggling, my muscles screaming, when I heard it again. Jason's voice, just behind me. "What's the matter, Carter? You really think you're going to make it out here?" I wanted to scream at him, to tell him I was more than his joke, but I didn't. I just focused on the next step, on the next move, blocking out everything except the course in front of me. My heart was pounding, but something had shifted. I wasn't fighting for their approval anymore. I was fighting for myself. As I approached the final obstacle, I saw Jason struggle with the climb. He slipped, losing his grip, and before I knew it, I was moving, pulling him up by the arm without a second thought. "Come on, Jason. Get your head in the game," I said, my voice more confident than I felt. For a moment, he just stared at me, his face twisted in surprise. He wasn't used to anyone being strong enough to help him, but he didn't argue. He climbed and we finished the course together. When we got to the end, Sergeant Miller was there, glaring at us both. But for once, there was no mockery, no criticism. He simply nodded. "Not bad, Carter, not bad." It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me believe that maybe, just maybe, I was finally starting to earn my place. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The rain was coming down in sheets, drenching us as we ran the mile-long obstacle course for the third time that week. My boots sloshed through the mud, my uniform clinging to my skin, the cold biting into me like 1,000 needles. It was supposed to be just another drill, another chance for the squad to push each other, but today felt different. Today, something had changed inside me, something I couldn't ignore any longer. Jason was ahead of me as always, leading the pack, his chest puffed out like he owned the place. The guy was built for this. He was fast, strong, and loud, but today there was a slight hitch in his movements, something I'd never seen before. I had a feeling it was the rain, the way it made everything. Slippery, the way it sapped the energy from your legs. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was dragging behind. In fact, I was catching up. "Carter, you're not a speed bump, you know," Jason called back, his voice laced with that mocking tone that made my skin crawl. "You can move faster than that, can't you?" I kept my mouth shut. I didn't need to answer him anymore. His words didn't have the same sting they used to. I had been here long enough to know that he wasn't as untouchable as he thought. None of us were. But the real challenge wasn't keeping up with him anymore. It was staying in control of myself, the quiet rage that built up every time he opened his mouth. It had to go somewhere, and today I wasn't going to let it control me. We hit the final stretch of the course, the rope climb. I had always struggled with it. My arms burned just thinking about it. But today the rain had made it slippery, and even Jason was having trouble. His fingers slipped on the wet ropes, and for a split second I saw it. Something I hadn't expected. Jason faltered. For the first time, he wasn't the one at the top, the one everyone was watching. He was struggling. I couldn't help myself. My legs moved before my brain could catch up, and I surged ahead, grabbing the rope, my hands firm and steady. The cold didn't matter. The wetness didn't matter. I pulled myself up, one hand over the other, pushing past the exhaustion, the doubt, the fear. I didn't even hear the others anymore. When I reached the top, I was the first to make it. The rest of the squad was still fighting their way up. I felt a surge of satisfaction, a brief flicker of pride. Then I turned to look at Jason. He was still struggling below, his face flushed with anger. I wasn't supposed to beat him. It wasn't the way it was supposed to happen. But it had. "Nice job, Carter," he spat, his voice sharp and bitter, his hand gripping the rope too tightly. He couldn't even look at me. but don't get used to it. I didn't answer him. What was there to say? This wasn't about him anymore. It never had been. When we finished the course, everyone was silent. Not the usual chatter, not the usual taunts. They were all looking at me, their eyes narrowing, maybe trying to figure out what had just happened. Maybe wondering if they had been wrong about me. Later during chow, the silence continued. The mess hall was as loud as usual, the clatter of trays, the hum of conversation, but for some reason, it felt different. I wasn't part of their conversation anymore, but I wasn't invisible either. Jason sat down across from me, his food untouched. His eyes were dark, his jaw clenched. He was still angry. And why wouldn't he be? I had just stolen his spotlight. "Think you're better than me now, Carter?" Jason asked, his voice low, almost dangerous. I didn't look at him, but I could feel his gaze on me, piercing through me. "No," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm done being in the background. I'm done letting you think you can just push me around." His eyes flickered with something, anger maybe. But there was a hesitation there too. For the first time, I saw him unsure. He didn't know how to respond, and that was everything. For the next few days, it was like nothing had changed. Jason kept his distance, but the others didn't look at me the same. There was a new respect there, even if they didn't say it. And Sergeant Miller, he didn't say much, but I could tell he was watching. Then came the field exercise. It was supposed to be routine, a simulated combat mission. We were split into teams, tasked with moving through enemy territory and retrieving intel. I was assigned to lead a small group. Jason, of course, was in my team. I'd been dreading this. I didn't want to lead him, didn't want to hear his constant snide comments. But I didn't have a choice. The mission started off easy enough, but it wasn't long before things went wrong. The comms went down, and we were cut off from the rest of the squad. Suddenly, it wasn't just about completing the mission. It was about getting back in one piece. Jason was in front of me, his face hard with concentration. But then, his foot slipped. He stumbled, and before anyone could react, he fell into a shallow trench. His leg twisted underneath him, a loud crack echoing in the silence. I froze. The others froze. But not for long. I didn't hesitate. I jumped into the trench, ignoring the pain in my own legs, the fear clawing at my chest. "Jason, stay still," I ordered, my voice calm, even though my heart was racing. I could feel the weight of the situation, but I didn't let it show. I wasn't going to fall apart, not now. "Carter, get the hell off me," Jason snapped, his voice tight with pain. But I could hear it now, the panic in his words. He wasn't invincible anymore. I pulled his leg gently, positioning it the way I knew it needed to be. I wasn't a medic, but I'd seen enough field training to know what to do. My hands worked quickly, efficiently, even as the rain soaked through to my bones. "Stay with me, Jason," I said, keeping my voice steady. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. I kept working, every movement precise. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I managed to get him stabilized enough to move. The others were still standing there, watching, waiting. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have the same calm I did. "Get him up," I ordered. "We need to move now." The rest of the team snapped into action. They helped me lift Jason, supporting his weight as we made our way through the mud, the storm, the thick, suffocating air. When we finally reached the extraction point, Sergeant Miller was there, watching from the distance. His eyes scanned us all, but when they landed on me, there was something different in them. Respect? Maybe. "Good job, Carter," he said, his voice softer than usual. "You kept it together. That's what makes a leader." And in that moment, I realized something. Everything had changed. Not just for Jason, not just for the squad, but for me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was leading. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The next few days after the field exercise were nothing short of intense. Jason's leg wasn't as bad as it seemed at first, but the injury had shaken him. The squad could see the cracks now, and I could feel the shift in the air, like a moment before a storm breaks. The way they looked at me now wasn't the same. They were starting to take me seriously. It wasn't just the climb or the field mission anymore. It was everything. The shift in power was subtle, but it was there. I could feel it when I walked into the barracks. I wasn't invisible anymore. But with that new respect came new pressure. I was leading now, and that wasn't something you could take lightly. Sergeant Miller had made it clear that my actions in the field had impressed him, but there was no time to bask in that. He pushed me harder, challenging me to lead the team through a series of new drills. The others were starting to look at me differently, and I could see it in Jason's eyes. He didn't like it, not one bit. It was during a night drill, just as the stars began to emerge in the black sky, that things finally came to a head. We were out in the field, running through simulated combat scenarios. Our mission was simple: infiltrate, gather intel, and exfiltrate without being detected. But this time the stakes felt higher. There was no margin for error. As we moved through the trees, I kept my focus, keeping a mental map of every step, every turn. I could hear Jason's breathing behind me, heavy and uneven. He had always been the one to lead, the one everyone relied on. But now it felt like I was the one they were watching. I tried not to think about it. Focus, one step at a time. Then everything went wrong. The enemy's patrol appeared out of nowhere, faster than we were expecting. They spotted us. The whole mission was compromised in a split second. "Down! Get down!" I hissed, grabbing Jason's arm and pulling him behind cover. But Jason wasn't moving fast enough. He was frozen, his eyes wide, panicked. For the first time, I saw him terrified. He wasn't the invincible Jason anymore. "Move, Jason!" I shouted, trying to get him to snap out of it. But he was frozen. The others were already starting to fall back, the drill turning into chaos. But there was no time. I pulled him down, shoving him into a nearby trench as enemy fire started to hit the ground around us. My heart was pounding, but I had one focus now: getting us out of there. "Stay down," I ordered, my voice sharp with command, more out of necessity than any kind of authority. But Jason wasn't listening. He was looking at me like I was the enemy now, like it was my fault we were in this mess. "You should have let me lead," he growled through gritted teeth. "I've been doing this longer than you. You don't know what you're doing." The words hit me like a slap. All the work I'd done, all the struggles to prove myself, and this was what I got in return? Betrayal? Doubt? From him? From the one person I tried to save? The rest of the squad was moving, and I knew we had to move fast. We were exposed, vulnerable. And Jason, he wasn't just holding us up. He was dragging us down. "Jason, listen to me!" I shouted over the noise, trying to make him see sense. "We need to go, now!" But his eyes were wild, and I saw the shift, the anger, the resentment he'd been carrying around for days finally breaking through. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice shook with rage. "You think this is your moment, don't you? You think you're in charge now? But you're not. You're just some rookie who got lucky." I felt the anger rise up in me, the heat from everything we'd been through, everything I had fought for, building, up to a boiling point. My patience was gone. "Shut up, Jason," I snapped, grabbing him by the collar. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to be the one to carry your dead weight?" There was a moment, a long, tense beat where everything was silent. The sound of enemy gunfire faded for a second, and in that silence, Jason's face twisted. He opened his mouth, ready to say something more. Maybe to tear me down, to prove he was right, to make me feel small. But it didn't happen that way. The squad, the ones who'd seen everything, the ones who'd watched me, who'd watched us, had seen enough. They'd seen what Jason really was. They had seen his fear, his arrogance, his inability to lead when it mattered. And just like that, everything shifted. It was Corporal Thompson, the quiet one who always kept his head down, who stepped forward first. He hadn't said much since I'd taken charge, but now, in the middle of all this chaos, he grabbed Jason by the arm and pulled him away from me. His grip was firm, steady. "Enough, Jason," Thompson said, his voice calm but heavy with authority. "You're not the one calling the shots anymore. Carter is." The words hit harder than any bullet ever could. Jason's eyes went wide, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. The anger twisted his features, but there was no room for his usual defiance. Thompson had spoken. The others were watching. They had made their choice. Jason opened his mouth to argue, but he didn't get the chance. Sergeant Miller's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. Enough. Thompson's right. Carter's in charge now. You'd better start following orders, or you can find your own way out of this mess. For a moment, everything froze. No one moved. No one spoke. It was like the entire field held its breath. And then, in that moment, I realized what had just happened. I had earned it. The respect. The leadership. The squad was mine now, whether I liked it or not. I didn't want this fight. I never asked for it. But I wasn't going to back down anymore. Not when I had worked this hard. Not when I had led this team through hell and back. Jason didn't say another word. He didn't have to. The silence that followed spoke louder than anything he could have shouted. We moved out of the danger zone, the mission compromised but still alive. We made it back to base, bruised, battered, but stronger than we'd been before. And when we finally hit the barracks, Sergeant Miller gave me a nod, a small, almost imperceptible acknowledgement. It was all I needed. I didn't know where the road would take me next, but I knew this. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was leading, and that's all that mattered. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The sun was just starting to rise, casting long shadows across the barracks as I stood at attention with the squad, waiting for morning formation. My heart was still heavy from last night's drill, but there was something different about today, something in the air, a shift. I glanced around at the faces of the other recruits, my teammates, my squad. They weren't the same as before. They had seen what I was capable of. They had seen the real me, the one who could take charge, lead through chaos. It wasn't just a role I was playing anymore. It was who I was now. And they saw it. Jason, standing off to the side, still wore that hard look on his face. But there was no fire behind his eyes anymore. No smug confidence. His posture was different too, slumped almost. For the first time since I'd met him, he didn't seem like the guy everyone looked up to. I felt it then, the weight of what I'd earned, the weight of what I'd fought for, and it wasn't about the recognition, not really. It was the quiet respect, the way things had changed in the eyes of the people around me. Sergeant Miller walked in, his boots clicking sharply against the floor, his eyes scanning the squad. He had that look, the one that always made you feel like you were under a microscope. But today, when his gaze landed on me, something was different. There was no anger, no challenge, just acknowledgement. And I could see that it wasn't just about what I'd done in the field. It was about how I'd carried myself since, how I'd led. He stood in front of us, his arms crossed. Last night's mission wasn't perfect, he began, his voice low but steady. But Carter, she got the job done. She got us all out of there. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, the weight of their attention, but there was no more resentment, no more whispers behind my back. They respected me. And for the first time, I realized that respect wasn't given because I was the leader. It was earned through everything I'd been through, everything I'd fought for to get here. Miller's voice cut through the silence. You want to be the best? You need to act like the best. Carter showed us what it means to lead, to make the tough call, to stay calm when the world is falling apart. For a split second, everything felt suspended in time, like the whole world paused just to recognize this moment, this shift, the transformation. I saw Jason from the corner of my eye, his jaw tight, his hands balled into fists. I knew that he didn't like it. I knew he was struggling with it. But I also knew that, in his own way, this was a moment he would never forget. He had underestimated me, and now he had to live with it. He had to respect it. But it wasn't just Jason. It was everyone. The whole squad had seen the truth. They had seen who I really was, not the weak recruit who couldn't keep up, but the one who had fought, who had led when no one else could. And it wasn't just about being in charge anymore. It was about showing them, and myself, that I was worthy of that responsibility. The drill wrapped up, and we all went back to the barracks. The buzz of whispered conversations filled the room, but it was different now. There was no more mocking, no more eye rolls. just the quiet hum of respect that had slowly built between us all. Later that evening, I sat on my bunk, my eyes on the floor, the soft hum of the barracks all around me. The day's events kept replaying in my head. The way I had led when it counted, the way the squad had responded, and how for the first time I had earned the respect I had always wanted. But there was no room for complacency, no time to rest on my laurels. I knew that the next challenge was just around the corner, and I had to stay sharp, stay focused. The respect was hard-earned, but I couldn't let it slip away. The door to the barracks opened, and in walked Sergeant Miller. He looked at me for a moment and then nodded. "Get some rest, Carter. Tomorrow's a new day, and you'll be leading again." The words hit harder than I expected. They weren't just an acknowledgement of what I had done. They were a promise of what was to come, a new responsibility, a new challenge. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning. I looked out the window at the night sky, the stars faint above the base, and I knew for the first time that I had truly earned my place here. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The squad stood at attention, the cool, morning air biting at our faces as the flag was raised. The stars and stripes unfurled in the breeze, a symbol of everything we had fought for, everything we had worked for. As the flag waved proudly above us, I stood there, my back straight, my chest filled with pride. And then, just as I thought the moment was over, Sergeant Miller walked up to me. He didn't say a word. He just nodded. It wasn't a typical nod. It wasn't the kind of nod you give a rookie. This one was different. It was the kind of nod a leader gives to another leader, a nod of respect. It hit me then. All the struggles, all the pain, the long nights and endless drills, they had led to this moment. Not the recognition, not the praise, but the understanding that I had earned my place, that I belonged here. I had broken through the silence. I had found my voice. And as I looked around at my squad, I saw something else. They weren't just fellow soldiers anymore. They were brothers and sisters. We had fought together, grown together, and in doing so, we had become something greater than the sum of our parts. The lesson here is simple. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In the end, it's not the hardships that define you, but how you rise above them. No one hands you respect. You earn it. With your actions, with your sacrifice, and with your honor. It's a lesson every soldier learns the hard way, and the true strength comes from never giving up, no matter how impossible the fight seems. So, share your thoughts with me in the comments. Tell me about your own journey. If this story spoke to you, like the video and show your support. And don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, and I'd love for you to be a part of this journey. Until next time, stay strong. You're not alone. We're all in this together.